Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CDH. Today we are asking the question, can you have a casual Najeela list? This was a game we filmed a few weeks back, and it features what Lutz describes as his casual Najeela list. And while we've always made fun of that statement, we even made a hoodie out of it, it does beg the question, can you make a casual Najeela deck? And watch the video and let us know. And if you're feeling generous, let me know of any other commanders that you just can't make a deck seem casual enough just by their power level. Also, have you heard the news? Your favorite CDH YouTube channel has released some cool merch, and even better, we have a brand new design. This is for letting everyone know what kind of mage you really are. And if you're interested in picking this up, or any of our other sweet apparel, come check us out. Also, if you like what you see, consider joining our Patreon, as with your help, we can keep producing the videos you enjoy. And if you want to play with us, hop on our Discord. We have an ever-growing community that loves to talk MTG, or whatever else strikes our fancy. And we would love to meet new people. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Starting us off is Fernando on Tymna Kraum. This is Lutz's blue farm list. It focuses on quickly assembling win cons with one-card enablers such as Adnaz or Intuition. The deck puts a heavy emphasis on Adnaz, Underworld Breach, and Dockside Extortion flickers. Tymna Kraum Breach utilizes a lot of fast mana to power out either explosive wins or strong early card advantage engines such as Kraum or Rhystic Study. It usually seeks to be the fastest deck at the table and has the potential to grind when needed. Next up is mtga Lutz, playing his so-called casual Najeela. And to his credit, this is Warrior Tribal. Granted, it's Warrior Tribal playing Mox Diamond and Force of Will, so take it with a grain of salt. But the deck aims to be an aggressive creature-based strategy that pressures his opponent's life total, while quickly building an army of warriors with Najeela. In the third spot, we have Hidden Planet X on Eveyln the Covetous. And while this is a commander I originally dismissed as being a more casual setting, but boy does this deck slap. This deck actually has a turn 1 World Gorger combo win with Eveyln, which is insane. And when you have Underworld Breach and Thrasios as backup win cons, the deck is always a threat. And bringing up the rear is Jimmy on Kalamax. And while Jimmy always adds some signature spice, the core of the list is still Kalamax, turn sideways, and get swole. Copying some spells with the classic Underworld Breach Brain Freeze win con. But without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Fernando starts the game off with an Underground Sea and a Mox Diamond. He discards a Scalding Tarn and keeps ramping with a Talisman of Dominance, with Lutz bragging about his deck building prowess, and the table reminding him that those are all staples of the format. Lutz plays a Misty Rainforest, taking 1 to grab a tapped Stomping Grounds, and passes. Hidden has a Flooded Strand, which he cracks for a Volcanic. And apparently Hidden is a better deck builder as he shortcuts to cast a Soul Ring and a Talisman of Creativity. Jimmy plays a Forest's Land and is also a master deck builder, as he has a Soul Ring into a Talisman of Creativity. Fernando has an Exotic Orchard and casts a turn 2 Rhystic, hoping to refuel his hand as he hands the turn over. Lutz is taking it pretty easy as he just plays a tapped Overgrown 2. Hidden plays a Mana Conflicts and taps his Soul Ring to cast a Grim Monolith. He doesn't pay for the Rhystic and follows it up with a Cabal Ritual. He feeds another card to Fernando and keeps going with a Wheel of Misfortune. He's also hoping to refuel on cards. This time he does pay for the Rhystic, but his hopes are dashed as Jimmy responds with a Swan Song. And oh man, is this Rhystic really paying off for Fernando, as the Wheel is countered and Hidden is done after that. Jimmy untaps and casts a Spellseeker. He pays for the Rhystic, but Fernando responds with a Pyroblast on the Spellseeker. Fernando untaps, but before he draws, he takes 1 to cast a Limdul's Vault. He starts looking at the top 5 of his library and goes pretty deep to find what he's looking for, ultimately taking 10 life and finally settling on a set of 5 cards to put on top. He plays a Cascade, bluffs his land, and filters it for double blue to cast a Thassa's Oracle. It resolves, and responding to the ETB, he casts a Demonic Consultation. Fernando thought he had it, as Lutz and Jimmy don't have an answer. But luckily for Hidden, Fernando has cast 3 spells this turn, turning on his Mind Break Trap that he's still holding. Hidden does have to give a card to the heuristic, but no free counter magic appears, and the demonic consultation is countered, with Fernando finally resolving the thrasios to look at the top 3 and put one back. Lutz has a wooded foothills as land and cracks it to grab a volcanic island. He taps out for Najeela and gives a card to Fernando. Hidden untaps, but has a flash commander, so he decides to hold back and pass. Jimmy follows Hidden's plan and untaps and passes. Fernando plays a wooded foothills and cracks it for a volcanic island. Then for 5 he casts his commander Kraum, with Jimmy responding by cycling a Veil of Summer, as he's missing land drops. He does pay for the heuristic, and Fernando passes as he searches for his land. Lutz has a tap Blood Crypt, and for 2 casts a Rush Blade Commander. He pays for the heuristic and heads to combat. He sends both his creatures and the 2 newly created warriors at Jimmy for 7. Jimmy takes the hit, and at Lutz's end step, Hidden flashes in his commander Eveyln. He can't pay for the heuristic, and on an ETB trigger he exiles an Arcane Signet, Fiery Cannonade, City of Brass, and a Deflecting Swat. Hidden then untaps and plays a stolen City of Brass, passing after that. Jimmy draws and cracks a Verdant Catacombs to grab a Tymna. He now has the color requirements for Kalamax and passes after paying for the heuristic study. Fernando starts off cracking a Misty Rainforest to shock in a Watery Grave. 3 mana then gets a Majeska's Will, which resolves and gives Fernando 6 red mana and exiles the top 3, with those being a Final Fortune, Mystical Tutor, and a Mana Vault. Fernando uses one of his floating red to cast the exiled Mana Vault. He thinks he has the win and casts his other commander, Tevesh. He doesn't uptick immediately and instead filters the last of his red into a blue and a red from his Cascade Bluffs. He then uses the blue on an exiled Mystical Tutor. Fernando then goes searching and debates what to get. He's trying to figure out the best line to go for and settles, funnily enough, on a Vamp Tutor so he can grab his Breach. The Vamp is then put on top, and Fernando then upticks Tevesh to sacrifice his Kraum to draw 3, finally ending his turn with the exiled Final Fortune. Fernando goes to his second turn and untaps. He does Vamp Tutor before he draws to put a card on top. He secretly puts an Underworld Breach on top, draws it for turn, and then upticks Tevesh for 2 more cards, sacrificing his Oracle. Now he casts his Soul Ring. Fernando also realizes he misplayed a little, as he should have cast a Malevolent Hermit. He should have cast it and sacrificed it to Tevesh to be able to recast the other side. Instead, he casts his own Chrome Mox and sacks the Hermit to counter it. The Hermit is then disturbed, with Fernando following that up with a Breach. Now Lutz had mentioned he does have a counter spell, so Hidden responds with a Baleful Mastery. He only pays 2 mana and gives a card to Jimmy. Hidden does pay for the heuristic, but Fernando needs his Geist and responds with an offer he can't refuse. Now Hidden is debating firing off that Cannonade, but Lutz said he needed his commander for his interaction, and instead Hidden casts his stolen Deflecting Swat, swerving the offer back onto the Swat. He does pay the 1, and however we do make a little error here. We didn't realize Hidden wouldn't get the 2 treasures off the offer, since it fizzles due to the Deflecting Swat. Then, with the Breach still in the stack, Lutz fires off a Fierce Guardianship. Fernando does get to draw, but has no way of comboing off, and loses at his end step. Lutz untaps and plays a Badlands. He knows about the Cannonade and heads to combat, with Hidden firing it off to wipe the board. And on Lutz's second main, he recasts Najeela. Hidden draws and plays an Arid Mesa as land. Unfortunately, he doesn't have much action in his hand and passes. Jimmy cracks a Flooded Strand to grab a Tropical Island. He then heads to combat and sends the Dino at Hidden, who responds with a Dress Down, although Jimmy wants to smash and cast a counter spell. Although I do think this is a slight misplay, as if Jimmy could have cast something else, Kalamax would have gotten the counter and been larger than Eveyln. But the counterspell does trigger Kalamax for a counter and a copy, and the Dress Down is no more. Hidden actually does want to recast his commander and decides to chump the Dino. Jimmy has nothing else to do, and at his end step, Hidden cracks his Arid Mesa for a Badlands. Lutz cracks a Scalding Tarn for a Tropical Island, but shortcuts to cast a Champion of Lamholt, and then a Chatterfang. This triggers the champion, with Lutz then moving in combat. Jimmy does have a response as he casts a lightning bolt, which gets copied by Kalamax to take out Najeela and the Chatterfang. But Lutz actually does have a deflecting swat of his own to at least save Najeela, with the Chatterfang and Hidden getting bolted. Now Lutz can declare attackers and sends Najeela and the newly created warrior Jimmy. Also, he gets another counter on the champion from the warrior entering, with Hidden at his end step taking 2 to cast his commander Eveyln. Although unfortunately for him, he exiles 2 lands and a nature's claim. Hidden plays and cracks his own exiled Scalding Tarn for an Underground Sea, and is done after that. Jimmy starts off his turn casting a Gutter Snipe. He then heads to combat and sends Kalamax back at Hidden, who once again chumps with his commander, with Jimmy ending his turn with a Jeweled Lotus. Lutz shocks in a Sacred Foundry, and then foretells a card. He heads to combat and sends the team at Hidden. This triggers Najeela for 3 extra warriors, and the champion for 3 extra counters, and smacks Hidden for 13. Although before damage, Lutz does activate Najeela for an extra combat and lifelink. Lutz then untaps his team and turns them back sideways. Najeela makes 6 more warriors and the champion gets 6 more counters, with Najeela and the champion and 2 warriors heading at Hidden, with the 8 other warriors heading at Jimmy. And in desperation, Hidden takes 2 to flash in his commander. He exiles nothing important and dies, while Jimmy takes 8 and Lutz gains a bunch of life. Jimmy untaps and goes looking for a way out with the transmuted Muddle the Mixture. He looks through his list, but unfortunately he only finds a Cinderclasm. He then casts the Manamorphose to draw an extra card and add 2 red, and then a kicked Cinderclasm to wipe the board of Najeela and the warrior tokens. He deals 2 from the Gutter Snipe before it dies, and heads to combat, setting Kalamax at Lutz. Lutz has an Underground Sea and recast Najeela. This triggers the champion and Lutz then heads to combat. The champion attacks and triggers Najeela for another warrior encounter, giving him 15 power on board to take Jimmy out and win him the game. Game review. So after seeing this, can you really call this a casual Najeela list? I know I've heard people say is all you need lands in Najeela and you'll still win. And I kind of agree. Najeela needs so little to really go off, and while she does have a straight 2-card combo, I think she's powerful enough to make her one of the best CEDH commanders on their own. And if you're one of those casual Najeela players, let the world know with this awesome hoodie. And with that shameful product placement out of the way. As for the other players, I do give props to Fernando, as he almost had it twice with both Thassa's and Underworld Breach. And if it wasn't for the whole table banding together to stop him, he really would have had it. The whole table did have to stop him, but unfortunately for Hidden, he had to use most of his resources to do so. And this let Najeela eventually take over, since everyone else was almost empty-handed. But thanks to all the players and the Battle Standard for letting us film. I hope everyone gets a good start to the year. And before I end the video, I do want to put a remembrance here for a special someone who passed away this Christmas. Millie, I know you're still watching somewhere out there, and I'll make sure to make you proud in the years to come.